This is an Onomy podcast.
Hey, listeners. I still don't know what to call you, but hello and welcome back. For those of you listening, not watching, we have a screen behind me here, and it's of the Hollywood sign, the hill that the Hollywood sign sits on, and I'm just looking at it on the monitor here and just kind of remembering how important that actual place was and is to me. Halfway through Ned's, my family bought a house up Beechwood Canyon in LA, which is up near the Hollywood sign there. And Hollywood sign was a view from our backyard, and it was a really special time in my life. And on top of that, I was still living at home. I went through like a big breakup when I was, I think, 20, and I started running this hill up to this tree that you can see in the screen here, and I, like, all summer I was like running up around the Hollywood sign and up to that tree and just like being there looking over LA and just kind of reconnecting to myself after a major breakup. I have always found major breakups to be obviously a painful time in your life, but such a beautiful time where you get to return to yourself. Because especially as young people, when we get in a relationship, we just fucking throw ourselves at it and try and merge with the other person, and we create a we, and we create a life that's fully entangled with this other half-developed identity. And when it ends, we're just left fucking wrecked and in pieces because we don't know who the fuck we are, because we just like tried to merge with this other person and we couldn't, and now we're not full and it's not full and it's gone, all that shit. So breakup time, recovering from that, is beautiful, I have always found, because I start to come back to myself. And a big part of my healing at one point in my life was running up in these hills back there. And man, I'm really grateful for that time in my life. Today on the pod, we have a very old friend of mine, a very talented, intelligent, and deep human being. Her name is Alyson Stoner. You might know her from her acting projects, Camp Rock and Step Up and all the things she does there. You might know her from her dancing ability, from the famous little girl dancing in the Missy Elliott video, Work It. You might know her now on social media for all of her social advocacy work. But I've known Alyson on and off since we were young. We shared a manager at a time, and a lot of us young performers, if we're around the same age, we overlapped a lot. We just know each other because we're part of the same community. So I've known her for years, and as we've gotten older, I really enjoy when I get to see her and getting to know her better. And she's going through a huge transition right now that I know I've been going through as well, which is not just the general transition from adolescence to adulthood, but the transition from adolescent performer to who the fuck am I as an adult. And she's out there trying to advocate to make that process for young performers smoother, more supportive, and safer. And I love that. She's also developing a company called Movement Genius, where she's trying to empower everyone with tools to manage what it is to be alive, stress and anxiety, and getting into our bodies and creating well-being for ourselves, and with very literal and practical practices that have to do with getting into our body. So she's in the middle of some major transitions, as I'm sure many of you are listening, as I am too. I don't know if that ever ends in life, these like major transition phases, but I think they come in waves. I think transitions are necessary and uncomfortable, And that's why they're necessary, is we only grow when we're uncomfortable. And then I think somewhere along the way through a major transition, we find some semblance of stability, and we kind of stay there for a little while, and we take a little break from climbing the mountain of our life. And then something happens, and we're back in a transition, figuring out our identity or our life path or whatever it is. Alyson and I talk about a lot, as I knew we would. We talk about her company, we talk about her advocacy work, but we also talk a lot about finding hope in life and reasons why it goes away, and different ways to pursue or connect to wonder in our lives and feeling connected to the planet and the big life and love that is around us. I didn't know we would end up talking about that as much as we did, but I'm so glad we did, and I feel right now like grateful that I had that conversation with her, and I'm so glad I get to share it with you now. So make sure you like, follow, subscribe, rate us on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, all the things, and share any of these conversations or clips that you might enjoy. Here's my conversation with Alyson Stoner. We are sponsored by FrameBridge. FrameBridge, the custom framing company, is the perfect way to refresh your space for the new year by framing everything that matters to you. That's because they can FrameBridge just about anything. Game day jerseys, selfies, your anniversary dinner menu, artwork, or your favorite movie poster. If you're like me, you have things in your house that you haven't gotten framed, that are maybe just tacked to your wall because you are overwhelmed at the idea of dealing with a framing store. FrameBridge is here to help. Here's how it works. You go to framebridge.com, you upload your digital photo. If you have a physical piece to frame like a poster, they'll send you a complimentary packaging to safely mail it into their owned and operated studio for the framing to begin. You'll preview your piece online in dozens of frame styles. Choose your favorite. The experts at FrameBridge will custom frame your piece and deliver your finished piece directly to your door, ready to hang. Instead of the hundreds you'd pay at a framing store, their prices start at $39. Order online at framebridge.com or stop by a FrameBridge store near you to work with a designer in person. This is a necessary service for all of us. I know you're like me and you just have loose, willy-nilly photos and posters all around your house, or little cheap, dinky frames. FrameBridge has all the goods for you, okay? Get started today. Frame your photos or give someone the perfect gift. What a nice gift to give someone. You give them a photo of like you guys and a nice memory, or like their child or like their dog, and you frame it for them. That's adulting. Go to framebridge.com and place your order today. Okay. Alyson Stoner. Hi. So yeah, there's cameras and there's like a video element, but really this is an audio medium. You know, you have a podcast.
Yes,
You know
I do.
Do you not film it?
I will be this new one.
Okay.
And I did the first one called Simplexity, but it's been a while.
Okay. Well, welcome back to podcasting.
Thank you. Devon, I feel obligated to provide a disclaimer.
Okay.
My opening statement is that
We've never had an opening statement. I love it. Go on.
this conversation has ripe conditions to go any number of directions because, one, I trust you, and I can count on one finger how many humans I trust. It's just you.
Okay. I really accept that.
Two, I can use 4 other fingers to count how many hours of sleep I got. And 3, on my 2-hour commute from the desert this morning, it actually was 3 hours and 45 minutes, and I did not get a chance to eat any snacks. So really anything could happen.
You're saying you're a little unhinged right now.
I am.
That's how we like to bring our guests in, starved and anxious.
Which really is the title of my memoir.
Awesome. I'm so glad to have you on, and I'm always glad when I get to see you. You moved out of LA.
I got out of there.
You got out of this crazy, packed vortex of traffic and desire.
Yes.
And you ran away to a beautiful place.
I did. A quiet place of solitude where one could heal. Though it turns out, in silence, you hear everything in your mind.
Yeah.
And a great chance to heal, but maybe not as peaceful as the image you have of the person on top of the mountain. They have a lot of stuff going on in their heads.
I believe that. That's part of what I think most of us enjoy in the big city is we can distract ourselves
Yeah,
from what's going on in our minds.
that's right. Turn it into art, commodify it.
That's true.
Hey,
Your home is beautiful out there.
thank you.
Congratulations. That is a very special property.
Thank you so much. I feel the same way.
It's really, I think it's special, and it's a step of being an adult that I am nowhere near is owning my first property. Like, it's not even on the fucking radar for me.
But does it have to be? Do you want it to be?
At some point, I don't want it right now. I'm like fully content paying rent. I like to move every couple years, and I
Yeah.
like that part of it. But at some point, honestly, seeing your place, like, that's gonna stay with me. Like, that for me is like an ideal version of what I don't think I'd ever own a place in LA. Owning a property in such a fucking beautiful, natural place is that down the line is definitely what I would want. So I'm gonna be inspired seeing your spot. So the first question I really wanna ask you here is, the main theme of this show, even though I don't know, I talk with people about all sorts of shit, is the transition from adolescence to adulthood. It's a kind of a vague process at this point. It's a gray process. Some things you advance in, and other things you're still a child in, and
Right.
some things you're like held back on, but other things you're like you really got down, and it just happens slowly. I think over time. I'm guessing well into our 30s. I really started to feel like my adult self was more settled at 30, like when I turned 30.
Yeah, this year for me, I'm 29, turning 30.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, I am a fully baked human. And in fact, I'm fully baked and now I'm declining.
Yeah. You've already hit the peak and you're coming back down.
Well, because once you're at the top, you're like, oh, shoot, I've been focused on developing here. And now apparently I've gotten to the other side and
Yeah.
just want to preserve as long as I can.
No, I think it keeps expanding
Okay,
in
hey,
our
I'm
30s.
into that.
I really do. I think
Fuck medical theories.
Well,
Yeah.
no, not just the mental. Yeah, I know your brain develops at 25, but no, I really think in our 30s we just finally have enough information about life that we can actually start making decisions that can
Yes.
grow and build something.
And hopefully also self-advocate.
Yes. No,
Whereas for so many years, right, you're like, do I have a voice? If I use it to assert needs, will I be punished? So
Yo, that
then you
is
reach a point, I guess it's the subtle art of not giving a fuck a little bit. Plus, like, maybe you just also don't have the patience or time anymore you have so many decisions to make. They're like, actually do need to just say, this is what I can do, this is what I can't do. And maybe starting to get clearer on answering that whole, what do you want question.
Yeah.
But that's still kind of an enigma for me.
Same. Although I think when we're young, you think you know what you want clearly. You're like, this is what I want.
Yeah.
This is what I want. This is what I want. And again, you don't have enough information until later in your 20s, 30s. I
Right.
don't think to really understand the scope of what that means.
Like, legitimately, when I was looking at Piaget's model, which is, it shows multiple developmental phases, and it's an incomplete theory, right? It's not perfect, but I was reminded that from ages 0 to 2, you're in sensory motor land. So
Okay.
you're literally only interpreting the world through sensory experience, no language, no complex processing, not verbal communication. And then 2 to 7, you still are like, it's a blur between fantasy and reality, and you haven't really started to form logic until around 7 to 11, and then 11 or 12 and beyond, it becomes a little bit more complex. But when I go back and think about the fact that we were performing at that age, we were asked questions on set or on carpets about like, what do you want to do with your life, and what do you want, and what's your take on this social issue? I'm like, I actually cognitively didn't even have access to logic yet.
Yeah.
Like, so yes, your ideas are based on, a very narrow understanding of the world, and you can't even possibly fathom the implications, long-term implications of a choice.
Yeah.
So, like, how many things did we think we wanted, but if we got them, or maybe we did get them, we're now like, oh, that's what that entailed.
Yeah. What?
Yeah. Soak it up. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Integrate that.
Performing has been a deep part of your life, and also a deep reckoning now in your adult life, right?
Yeah.
You said something the other week when I saw you along the lines of, you're not acting anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you said it like that with enthusiasm. And I think that's one of those things you're talking about, that not knowing the implications of what it is to actually do it. I have kind of gone through my darkness with what comes with pursuing this that I didn't know as a kid. And I've come through the other side recommitted and in now my adult vision of what it is to pursue this thing. But I know many of us young performers come through that in all sorts of different ways.
And move to the desert.
Yeah, and move away from LA and let it go. And I wow. When you said it, I kind of heard you say it in interviews, but hearing you say it in person when someone asked, I was like, oh, whoa, Alyson's out.
Yeah. What's interesting is technically I'm still on 2 shows. So
So you're out emotionally.
I'm invested in the collaboration with that cast and crew, and I believe in the writer's vision, and also it is ironically now the steadier form of income, so it does fulfill that purpose to some degree.
Yeah.
But my just orientation is so focused on the company, learning what it means to be a founder, an entrepreneur, that I'm simply not immersed in it, nor do I fear the consequences of making all kinds of decisions that I used to deprive myself of doing, such as moving away or having any sense of a personal schedule and personal life.
Because what if I have to audition?
Right,
what if I have to be there? And what if I have to...
Right.
Yeah.
And then also speaking up candidly about experiences to bring reform to the industry, knowing I don't have to be employed by any of you ever again.
Yeah.
So there's a liberation there.
Yeah.
And an empowerment. But I actually wanted to initially follow your path of finding the new love for it and the new understanding and approach. And for now, once I dared to face the fear of walking away, and I realized that I was going to survive on the other side, I'm recognizing just how important it is for my journey and development to tap into all these other parts of myself that were just offline because I was only focused on performing.
Yeah.
So I know for some of my friends, they're like, we love music, we love storytelling, we need to communicate through art. And I'm like, I really want to read that academic paper on the mind-body connection. And so I want to track with that for a little bit, see what else is there. Maybe I'll, bridge them. Maybe I will, be a failed entrepreneur and have to be like, oh no, the only thing I know is how to dance. And that's a possibility. Like, if y'all see me in 5 years back on camera, just know it could be for a host of reasons.
Work. I love that entertainment is your fallback now.
Yes. And that brings us to lessons I should have learned growing up about stability and structure, but didn't.
No, it is a weird thing. I do feel a kinship with everyone who was a child performer.
Yeah.
It's different when you grow up wanting to perform, but you kind of follow a normal path, and later in life, you have enough life experience outside of performing that then you come to LA and you come to pursuing this life, and you already kind of have a rounded out idea of what else is out there, what it's like to pursue other things. And then you come to it kind of with, I don't know, adult responsibility and gratitude for figuring it out.
Sure.
I feel a kinship with all of us child actors because it's different, man. It's different when you grew up in it feeling like it was somewhat normal.
Right.
Also, thinking it's everything. I mean,
sure.
Our whole
The
lives it's a bubble. Our whole lives were this pursuit and being the right kind of good and answering questions and the right kind of amicable and do they like me and am I being perceived well and put on the smile, babe, and all that stuff. So I know all of us are
recovering.
Yeah, just recalibrating.
Some of us,
some of us. I had a particularly good version of this industry because of the jobs that I ended up on. And I think that's luck of the draw. Like the top of the hierarchy that you work for is really going to set a lot of the tone.
Sure.
And I talked about it actually with Christy on Vulnerable a little bit, was like the Ned's cast. Like, we had a particularly good experience on Ned's.
Cool.
Because our creator was an incredible man and his wife was involved and the kids were on set. Like, it was a family production.
That wasn't
It wasn't Dan Schneider.
Oh, okay.
It was Scott Fellows.
Oh, okay.
Who it feels like Nickelodeon kind of like treats like a fucking stepchild, even though Scott Fellows is a good human, creates good content, and all of his content has a genuine intention of like actually helping the viewer at home feel less alone in their actual lives. Like,
that's how I feel about Dan and Swampy, the Phineas and Ferb creators. Different Dan.
Yeah. But that's the difference is who's at the top is really going to dictate your experience. So I had a particularly good version of the child acting, even though it comes with all sorts of shit.
Sure.
I know you're out there with Christy working to advocate to help this industry.
Yes.
And help protect kids. How's that going?
It's going swimmingly. Every time we open our mouths, the union just listens and reforms their own policy without us even asking. So I think it's helpful context for people when they're wondering why, someone who's experienced such privilege and fame and notoriety and, success of a kind that they're saying, behind the scenes it was bad.
Sure.
And something I like to start with is it's so peculiar that child labor is covered by federal law, but child entertainers are exempt from those laws, which means kids have to rely on each individual state to create regulation specifically for child entertainers. And 17 states, many of which are locations where a lot of productions take place, don't have any laws for kid entertainers. So the kids on those sets are actually literally, legally, the least protected people on that set. And so I don't think people recognize that at a legislative level, there's a lack of protection, but then also culturally and systemically, there are a lot of odd forces and surprising factors for families who come into the industry not knowing what to expect because, one, the industry wasn't designed with kids in mind.
Yeah.
It wasn't an educational, schooling institution. So most of the adults on sets or the executives a part of the project, they're not educated on child development. They're not trained on what's appropriate. So you just enter an adult workplace.
That's it.
And you're treated like the adults.
Kind of like an adult, yeah.
Right. And adult responsibilities. There's some work hours that are limited, but even then you're like still in rehearsals before that and going to other auditions after and blah, blah, blah. But then also, of course, the industry wasn't designed with human well-being in mind. Most industries aren't. They're trying to accomplish a
goal.
A goal and make money. And so really what I'm calling to, the forefront is these opportunities to improve conditions so that we can reduce the statistically evident suffering that we see for this population. But it does not mean that I'm trying to say, woe is me, feel bad for me. It's really like, hey, now we have information. We're far more publicly educated about mental health, psychology, and we know that A plus B equals disaster for this kid. So why don't we make it better? I'm not even going to tell you to burn the whole thing down.
Yeah.
I'm not going to tell you that it's any one person's fault. I'm going to say, let's just start doing better today.
Yeah.
Just like in our healing journeys, it's like, I'm responsible for the way that I treat you, even if I could say, I'm this way because all these things happen to me. Sure, maybe.
Yeah.
But like,
you're responsible now for your behavior.
Yeah. So, I'm just thinking about kids now who also have to deal with the digital landscape, which is...
Yeah, that's a whole other element that we didn't even have, and I'm so glad.
Yeah.
I also think a ton of it, which is hard to legislate, a ton of this comes down to parents. And that's just like any childhood.
Right.
Any childhood. Most of what's good or bad is going to come down to how your parents are.
Yeah.
And that you can't legislate. That's all sorts of family shit and personal responsibility.
But what if,
Go on.
when kids and families were meeting with agents, a part of the onboarding process of signing the contract was just like a 10 video set of modules sort of saying, here's what to expect.
I love that.
And including things like, did you know that sometimes, your child before auditions or after auditions might experience some dysregulation emotionally? Here are some simple stress relief techniques. Or did you know that once your child becomes famous, if you experience fame, you're going to have a split set of identities: the product and brand, the creative self, and the true, authentic kid self.
Yeah.
And like, here are some ways to have conversations about that with your kid. So like,
You're not wrong.
we could...
Yeah, you're not wrong.
We could provide some of those tools. Whether or not people watch them or absorb them is, of course, another thing.
Yeah.
But then on sets, like, I think there are ways to help reinforce and just remind people of their, quote unquote rights. So folks don't feel so disempowered, but you establish a work environment where there's like just an acknowledgement of, hey, we got little folks on set.
Yeah.
So like here's some things that we do on this particular set.
Yeah.
Which really probably should also be on every set.
Right. And again, a lot of that comes down to luck of the draw. Because it's also on what studio teacher you have, because the studio teacher is the welfare worker.
Yo!
And we had, again on NEDS, we had incredible studio teachers.
Who are your studio teachers?
Do you know Scott Plimpton?
No.
I mean, he was with us most of the time, and then
Okay.
he was on iCarly, I think.
Okay.
But incredible educator, first of all, incredible teacher, and a welfare worker. He was there going like, yo, there are laws and we're beyond them, and like,
That's awesome.
I'm the bad guy for that.
Yeah.
And he'd take it. A lot of studio teachers don't, but again, that's a luck of the draw thing, who
Yeah.
you end up with on your set.
We had some great studio teachers here and there. I remember Laurel, who was very strict, but I actually appreciated that because she was one of the few adults who would discipline us.
And your kids, you need some discipline.
Yes. I mean, yes.
Because the whole set's kissing your ass.
Yes.
Yeah.
And Satwinder was on one or both of the Camp Rock films, and I'm still in touch with him. And I just think of the ways that they were navigating so many different roles. Yes, they're supposed to be the teacher. Yes, they're supposed to be the welfare worker. But they also have to just keep an eye on, like, these are young kids who are working long hours and taking on a lot of pressure. Like, they have to be able to perform and do their job contractually. So yes, they need to finish this history paper, but, like, maybe actually they need a snack first.
Yes.
So there's a lot of
and the good ones are good, and it makes sense why a lot of them can't fulfill all those, and ours did. Yeah, there were times, for those of you that don't know, it's like there are child labor laws, at least in California. We would work a 9.5 hour day, I think. A half hour of that is lunch, and 3 hours of that had to be school that you can only get in 20-minute chunks. Like, you can't do 10 minutes and have it count towards that 3 hours. So anytime we weren't filming, they're rushing us to school so that we could get that 3 hours in the workday. But there are times where, like, you were just filming for 2 hours and you're, like, so tired, and then you go in and you're supposed to do a lesson. Yeah. And there were definitely times where, like, our teacher would know, like, all right, let's do something that's not your schoolwork but is kind of restorative, but also not you just, like, playing a video game. Yeah, like, there's ways to navigate that. But that goes the same for any public school. Is some teachers really have that magic and that overall whole awareness of child development, and some don't.
Right. Or simply, maybe as educators, haven't yet implemented the various techniques you can use to engage young people. But I imagine for teachers, it's so hard when you have
30 kids?
Yeah, 30 kids who are so different from each other.
Yeah.
And, some are tactile and some can't sit still and shouldn't developmentally. And, some are verbal, some are visual, and you're like, okay, I have to. And then you have the pressures of standardized testing in the system, right? So I'm like, I get, teachers, any adults in our lives, I know ultimately, like, a lot of you were just doing your best.
Yep.
Because I imagine if I had kids right now, I'd be like, oof, on my 4 hours of sleep and all of these different things that have happened already today. If I'm also raising a child, like, my heart goes out to parents. My sister, I think of my sister and her kiddos. Like, she's my co-founder of the company, and sometimes I'm like, how are you managing all of this?
For real.
Because I just became an adult this year.
Yeah, I'm barely taking care of myself some of the time,
Right.
let alone another human.
Yeah. But I did keep plants alive.
Hey, good for you.
Mostly.
Until you leave.
Until I am now leaving for a long period. So I had to get,
Did you have a favorite subject in school? Because I know now as an adult, I see you as someone who's very into learning a lot of different subjects.
What do you see when you see me?
I mean, obviously the arts, but that's like a given in. I'm asking, like, in school, but what would you have liked in school? I don't know, English, literature, stories, grammar, all that fun stuff.
Punctuation.
Yeah. Am I right?
I did enjoy English. I felt nervous about science because it seemed like, for some reason, it was for other people and I didn't belong in that subject. However, as I got older, I realized that's my jam. But it could have been also because at that time I was still following creation theory. And when I read about evolution, I was like, no, that's not what my pastor said. And so I had some, like, fundamental
deep
schisms
dissonance.
there.
Yeah. Wow.
So that's a journey.
At what age did you let go of creation theory?
Oh.
I didn't know this.
It really sticks with you.
Okay. Okay. I didn't know you grew up super religious.
You want to know what's even wilder?
Yeah.
My family wasn't. I chose it.
Oh.
Devon.
You're such a little weirdo. I love it.
I know, but it makes sense because I'll make it make sense in 30 seconds or less. First of all, there was chaos all around me in the industry.
Okay.
There was also chaos in my home. Very dysfunctional family, lots of abuse, addiction, and the two people in my life who seemed to have some semblance of sanity and balance were both kids in families of faith. So they invited me to join them for service, and it truly was my first glimpse at genuine community. I learned so many of the values that stay with me.
Yeah.
Especially in terms of integrity, like who I am in private is hopefully who I am in public, in the sense that, like, I'm not trying to secretly behave one way and then lie to the,
Right, your
to the person in
values
front of
are
me.
your
Yeah.
values, yeah.
Yeah, because now I'm like, well, actually, there are definitely things now that I'm different in private. But yeah, I'm grateful. I'm grateful for also the introduction to spirituality in terms of going beyond just the material, physical realm. And I would say around 18, it was when I realized that I was attracted to my first girlfriend, that it started this whole, it was a ripple effect, right? Because I was like, I can't do this. I'm not supposed to do this. It's wrong. I need to change this. I'm trying to change it. It's not working. I don't want to just justify this, but like, what else? What am I missing here? Reaching a point of being like, oh, I guess there are a lot of different theories. So there's like Calvinists, there's Arminian camp, there's a lot of different theological frameworks. One of them is this concept of predestination, which the reduced version of that is like, y'all were already selected before you came into your body here. So if you were chosen, great. If you weren't, sorry. And I had a moment where I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize that I wasn't supposed to ever make it. I wasn't ever supposed to be saved. I tried to be a part of this group, but I guess I'm destined for hell, and I was already predestined.
Because you were attracted to a woman.
Because I was attracted to a woman. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I know. It's so sad. Because women are so amazing.
I agree.
Yeah, we could talk for hours.
We'll do that after the pod, okay?
Yeah, that's that private shit.
That's that private shit.
Yeah. So, hey, growing up. We're grown now. So, yeah. So
No, I get it. That's a huge identity, worldview.
Yeah. I deconstructed, I'll spare you all of it, but like, yes, I was much older than I think many people are in their kind of like self-discovery journey. It was kind of a late bloomer, I would say. I mean, like, I believed in Santa till I was like 13 or something.
That's pretty late.
It's pretty late.
It's pretty late.
My family, in my defense, kept up the gig. Gag? Gig. Gag.
Both.
Yeah, it was a gig for them. Because I would write a letter to Santa every year, and you know who would sign it? Santa.
Yeah.
And
you know who Santa was? Your fucking parents.
No, because guess what? One time they had to call in favors from other people because we were out at a family dinner, and by the time we got back, there were presents under the tree.
Wow.
Tell me it's my parents. It wasn't.
Because I was
directly.
With them.
Yeah.
All right, this is a little tangent, but...
So now I'm all about science.
There's a little tangent for a second. I don't know. I am open to my mind changing when I actually have children in front of me who are mine. But as of this point, I don't judge parents who do Santa with their kids. But as of this point, how I feel is I want my children to know that my word is truth. I want my children to know that they can trust what I'm telling them from a very early age, that I am sound, that I am integrity, that like, hey, I got you. So as I sit here as a 31-year-old single man with no prospects of having a child, I don't want to do Santa with my children. As much as I loved the magic of it, I don't want to create this lie that then it's this confusing process when it starts to
really
unravel
was.
And there's never like a deep kind of reckoning. Just slowly you start to get information and eventually one day you're like, oh, I guess I'm with all of you who are telling me it's not real. Oh, it's not real.
Same with the tooth fairy.
Yeah, that one I was less into.
I was in on that.
Man, you're in, and your parents kept it up.
Surprisingly gullible for being so skeptical.
Yeah.
Maybe I was trying to retain any semblance of a normal childhood.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, maybe it has something to do with that.
Something
but thank you for sharing about what brought you to your
Santa.
faith. That makes so much sense, is having examples of, wait, these people who follow this seem good and stable. Let me go there.
Yeah, and I will actually still even go as far as to say I believe that you can access dimensions of truth. You can still have legitimate experiences that are transformative and that are multidimensional. And what in my journey so far I've discovered since deconstructing is that I don't necessarily want to become glued too much to one Americanized, modernized, capitalistic, militaristic, nationalistic interpretation of a text.
Spirit.
Yeah. And I invite folks who are still in the church to believe that if what you're really pursuing is truth, if you stay committed, you'll land in this place of truth. So until you've gone all the way through and through, I'd say keep going, keep exploring.
Right, read more.
Yeah.
Listen to more. Hear more. See more.
I'm really giving away my cards here, but but I think I reached a point where I was like, if God is love and truth and goodness and wholeness, if I continue to pursue these pillars, I trust that whatever isn't God will fall away. I'll get a new, maybe a new understanding of each of these things or something.
Yeah.
But what I call love now is very different than how I defined love while I was in the church.
There is the side of it that we know to be toxic, and I know there are contemplative Christians.
Yeah,
there
totally.
are
Oh, yeah.
contemplative, devout, religious people in all forms.
And still, when it comes to certain like synchronistic events in life that you're like, whoa, how did that happen? I still, just recently, there was a former, she's also, I think, deconstructed since, but at the time, she was a Christian. I was a practicing Christian. I really looked up to her for her music. It was a balmy salve in some of my darkest experiences in the industry and with my family. And I have no real life relationship with her. But about a week ago, I've been in quite a challenging spot personally. And I was, just roaming my home, and one of her songs popped in my head. And I had that moment of like, wow, this used to be so soothing and comforting. And although I've maybe adjusted some of my views since then, this is still striking me in a certain way. I opened my Instagram DMs and she messaged me. I don't have any relationship to her. And she said, "Hi, I felt a nudge. How are you?" And so in that moment, I'm like, even if I'm no longer fully involved in the way I was, there's still a currency energetically. There's still some sort of something at certain times that seems to defy just my material logic, right? So we're gonna have a conversation in the next couple of days, and even though she too I think has left the church, the thing that we share is some sort of, I don't know. Tell me any other way.
Yeah.
Who?
No, that's one of those moments that
Right? So
make you question reality. You're like,
Right.
whoa, there is a connection here that's deeper than I
Yeah.
can see.
Right. And it doesn't necessarily mean it has to be from a single figurehead saying, I'm going to arrange
Not
this
at
thing
all.
like a mastermind. but it's something that goes beyond maybe the faculties we typically utilize on a daily basis.
Yeah. Some of my development in my teenage years around feeling wonder towards life and actually tilting me more towards, I use God as the word. I don't even know what that fucking means, but we have that as the word. But something that pointed me more towards God, which doesn't happen for a lot of people, was actually a science show, okay? There's a show on the BBC called Wonders of the Solar System with
Hell
Brian
yeah.
Cox, and Wonders of the Universe is the next season. And he does such a beautiful job at explaining the forces that we know of the physical universe, okay, and the solar system. And in the show, he'll kind of show an example of something on Earth, a force that we all know, let's say tornadoes, and say, okay, that same force that's creating the tornado is what spiraled the planets into each other. And then he'll expand out to the solar system and show you something in the solar system and how it works. And the solar system is such a phenomenal balance of chaos and order. It's so immaculate that learning about the science of it actually led me closer to whatever God is. Because I was like, this is so beautiful and perfect and rhythmic and harmonious and miraculous that it even exists. That it led me closer to my own wonder. And I think that's a beautiful place to be in, that I think a lot of the church ends up not being. Is It's not about wonder. There's like a middleman to God, and it's about like, I don't know, whatever your practices are, and do that. But for me, when I feel closest to this life is like that experience you just had, I'm sure put you in a state of wonder. I randomly felt this song come back into my head. This person is messaging me saying she had a feeling to check in on me and I don't know her.
Right.
That creates wonder. You go, what? I wonder
Yeah.
what this life is. I wonder how good it could be.
Right.
I wonder what I'm a part of.
Right. And it brings up the concepts of like resonance and or something like alignment. And it was the first encounter with that sort of mystifying wonder and awe that I had had in a while. And so if nothing else, if it all boils down to just molecules doing funny interactions, I still am so grateful of that aspect, the reminder of that aspect of being alive, because
Yes.
I've been maybe in response to, my upbringing, I've probably been swinging to the opposite side of the pendulum, and I have this kind of like nihilistic streak. And I support the skepticism, but I don't want to completely forsake wonder and awe. Also, I think just as you're growing up and you're facing more directly the crises that, we collectively are facing, and you're interacting with systems that are broken and need repair, and you're reckoning with all of these things that weren't ideal in your upbringing or for the folks around you, it can get heavy quickly. And you can wonder like, wow, I used to have access to hope, but I can't find it. I used to have access to joy, but I can't feel it. Or I don't believe in it anymore because everything else seems so grim. And so I think, that moment was like a reminder of the full spectrum of experience.
Yeah.
And I'm grateful for it, for whatever, whatever caused it.
Yeah.
And I don't need to know all the answers, but I can use that experience and information to really reflect on, okay, what do I want to do with this opportunity to connect with someone and to maybe kind of recalibrate my course so I'm not so far in one direction or the other,
Yeah.
but I'm like, okay, meandering as a full human.
Yeah, you still have access to possibility and
Yes. Because depression is real.
hope. No, I mean, it really hit me when you said that, because living without it is really hard. And it's a natural process that you come to. I had a lot of hope and optimism as a young person. I experienced a lot of wonder. I had a lot of good things, a lot of blessings in my life. And at a certain point, life started to break down. And then, like you said, when you start actually learning about the systems that are governing so much of our lives and how just dumb and broken they are and so non-caring they are, and how much they could be fixed but fucking won't be.
Yeah.
It's a natural conclusion to start giving up wonder and hope and optimism and even activism and just go into fucking cynicism or survival or whatever. And just over X amount of years through my 20s, I didn't even realize, like, I don't think I had felt hope in a while.
Wow.
And when it started to come back, it really hit me how much I had been living without it. And you fucking can't. You have to have some sense of wonder in your life, because no matter what is happening, this life is still fucking amazing. It's still amazing.
Yeah, I felt revitalized. Like I connected to vitality again.
Yeah, life
And-
force.
Yeah, truly.
Yeah.
And I have so much empathy for people in the space where you really lose the sense of purpose. Things just really feel quite meaningless.
Yeah.
And you're looking even for a sense of self, and that's kind of hard to find. And so I now, more than ever, because of this recent period, have access to those palpable experiences. And, you know, for me, what feel like pretty empty and pretty heavy. And so my heart feels such a tenderness when I hear other people also experiencing that. And it's not like I've had a moment of reconnecting with hope, but it's not like I'm actually, out of it yet. I think I'm still kind of like,
No, same.
what do I have? What can I rely? Where is hope? What would that look like now? What does it mean? And so but those small little moments and glimpses, I'm recognizing now are like those, it's like the light at the end of the tunnel, where I hear people talk about this, where they're like, I was just holding on to this one little thing, and that's what I needed to choose to stay here or whatnot. And so I'm like, wow, that's real. Like, to your point, those moments of revitalization, connection to other or life itself or planet is like, those are sustenance.
Yeah, like literal sustenance.
Yeah.
Needed for your life.
yeah.
Necessary to be alive.
Yes.
Like
yes.
truly sustaining.
Do you think what's happening? Oh no. Well, I was gonna say, I remember growing up seeing adults who seemed to like lose the magic and then be like, I'm so glad you youthful folks can help
Feel
reignite
joy.
help reignite our sense of hope in the world. Do you think that maybe we're going through a part of that, our version of that?
Absolutely. As I've gotten older, I've understood a look that I saw in certain adults' eyes when I was a kid.
Whoa.
That was just a little disconnected, a little dead. They're there, but
Wow.
like I remember seeing this look and not really knowing what it was. And now I get it, and I feel for everyone
Yeah.
what they've gone through to get to that place where they've kind of given up. They can't find it. They can't find their footing. They can't find
And sometimes
something
life is just tiring.
yeah, sometimes
Like
you're
it-
just fucking exhausted.
It's taxing, and taxes, and it corrodes your
That life force, that
Yeah.
spontaneity, that wonder, that joy, but it's necessary. And I don't think anyone is exempt from this process. This
Yeah.
is
Yeah, right.
this is life. This is what our ancestors have gone through. This is what everyone through time has gone through.
Yeah.
Is meeting the impossible, insurmountable chaos of life around you.
Yeah.
Having it take you through some process of shutting down, contracting, despair even, like whatever it is. And part of, I think all of our life's mission and our ancestral mission is continuing to find our moment here and still feeling wonder and imbuing life with fucking love, creativity,
Cultivating
connection.
resilience.
Yeah, all of it.
Yeah. What comes to mind if we're talking about lineage and, genes and what gets passed on, we have to also recognize that biologically, the reason we're here is because some of our ancestors had enough anxiety to recognize the threat and stay alive. Because there were other ancestors who looked at the lion and were like, that might be a lion or it might be a rock. And so I'm going to bet it's a rock. And they didn't make it. So some of our, some of the anxiety coursing through our bodies that can be frustrating to feel now is a result of what helped us survive as a species.
Yes.
So yes, we got to learn how to say, okay, we have these deep mechanisms, defense mechanisms, and how can we learn to, negotiate them and navigate them now differently, but we just have to admit,
I think it's one of the hardest parts of our current lives is that biologically we developed for a very different world.
Yeah.
And what kept us alive were things that are now driving us all insane. The fight or flight mechanism is what our species survived with, you know? But now it's triggering on all sorts of things, and we can't catch up. And we got to have a little grace and a lot of education and a lot of just being with ourselves to try and integrate these things with our modern world and our modern selves.
Well, right. Because technology is going at this speed. Yeah. Our biology is this speed.
Exactly.
Our systems are this speed.
Yeah.
And I forget, I heard this from someone else in much more articulate fashion. But when you have those different rates of development coexisting, it's
it's chaos.
Yeah, it's tough.
Yeah, it's chaos.
Yeah, so I'm curious to see what we choose to build technologically, because in some ways, tech is advancing so rapidly, and it feels inevitable, we don't even have a choice. It's just going to be the thing.
Yeah.
But in other ways, if we collectively find our humans unable to flourish at all, because of certain aspects of technology, we might have to adjust course in a moderate to significant way. I don't know if or how that could happen.
I know. I don't know how things go any direction but forward. I don't know. Well, I don't know how you stop this momentum.
Or just
I know.
It's a lot. But also you think of the climate crisis, and so we have a lot of things that are boiling to a head, so to speak.
Oh, there's feedback in all of our systems that says make adjustments. And that's what drives me insane, looking at systems that I can't change. I can't fucking change them. Look, I fucking can't, okay? Little me here in my little podcast studio. I can't change these systems. But there's feedback in the systems that the people who can, it blows my mind that they ignore them. Because if you ignore feedback like this in your personal life, shit's gonna come to a head. If you ignore glaring warning signs shouting at you that hey, shit is unbalanced, you're heading towards trouble, you have to make those adjustments in your personal life.
Yeah.
Or shit explodes.
Yeah, but it's hard to receive the signal when you're on the private island with low Wi-Fi signal. No, that's true. The islands, it's hard.
The satellite internet isn't fully working yet.
Yeah, so
you're right.
It's tough.
You're
sometimes
right. Let's order more sushi.
So I think when modern life affords the conveniences where we're not in fight or flight anymore, yes, there's a perk to that, but also it desensitizes us to the relationship to the planet that we have now, that I personally know my relationship has been organized as I'm just taking,
Yeah.
and I'm not actively reciprocating
Yeah.
in a more harmonious mutual relationship with the environment. And so that's something I'm reflecting on. I know that also, like you said, me doing something individually is not the same as a big corporation changing their, manufacturing system. But like, again, it's the both and. And I also think in order to connect to that sense of hope and just that posture of heart and mind, even just to feel the connection to the planet for that sake alone.
Right, just to feel connected to this beautiful fucking planet you live on.
And to recognize this interdependent nature of reality.
Yeah.
It's worth it even for that alone, and of course also for hopefully the material impact that can facilitate.
Yeah. Did you see Kiss the Ground documentary on
No.
Netflix? That is one
I
of...
don't have a TV.
Oh, okay.
Or a
Oh, that's right. I
Netflix.
noticed
Yeah.
that you had no TV in your
Yeah.
living room. That's because you have a view. I have to look at the TV to look outside the world.
No. Come visit.
But no, there's a beautiful documentary called Kiss the Ground. And a lot of times when I see documentaries on climate or any of our systems, I feel hopeless at the end of them. Even though at the end they're like, here are some steps. I'm usually like, that's bullshit.
Yeah.
Kiss the Ground, really beautiful. It's about how our agriculture practices, our monocrop farming, destroying soil. It's all taking and literally leaving no more soil, just dirt. It's dead.
Wow, yeah.
But then they talk about there are regenerative farming practices that actually can be fully financially good for the farmer, and they regenerate. They give back to the earth, and now we're creating a system where the soil is healthy, so it's pulling carbon from the air. And they laid out a model that actually was like, I mean, I'm not a farmer, so I can't do this, but they laid out a thing that said, if we actually start implementing this on a wider scale, we can be pulling so much carbon out of the air to account for all of humanity. And it's like, wow, there's a very real, possible something that could help.
Yes.
It connected me to a little bit more hope.
Yes.
And those things are valuable because there's a lot of reasons to not feel hope.
Well, and one more reason to connect with that hope is it helps provide the resilience to do the work that's necessary for each of us to do.
Exactly.
Independently and collectively. We have to find that social pod and that circle where we're creating these virtuous cycles of, proactive conversation, growth, healing, getting involved, supporting each other in our own respective domains. Because, without that sort of encouragement, it would be unsustainable to attempt to, create a more sustainable world.
And that's part of what you're doing with your company, yes? Isn't that like a big... will you tell us about it?
I will.
Movement Genius?
Yes. Movement Genius is an all-in-one place to care for your mind, your body, and your emotions. We provide mental health tools, stress relief techniques, full body movement programs that are designed by therapists to improve well-being. Anytime, anywhere, you can, open your phone or go on the computer and find a class that's 3 minutes or 45 minutes, seated, standing, lying down, whatever you need for your mind and body. And at the heart of it were two things. One, I noticed that most mental health tools only focused neck up. So they did a lot of, recommending talk therapy, medication, meditation, and all of those can be incredibly valuable. And I've practiced and utilized all of them. Mm-hmm. However, if you don't include your body in the process, then your body still has these patterns, these habits, these
emotion
triggers, deep, reactions to things, leaving you feeling stuck in between those therapy sessions or disconnected because you're changing your mindset up here, but your body still feels like it's highly activated down here. And so our tools are specifically to help strengthen the mind-body connection and to help you shift in your entire being so you get a much deeper, lasting transformation. But also if you just need it for like a quick 5-minute, cool down or stress relief break, it does work for that as well. So that's, one aspect. The other aspect is most wellness companies have been built by and for a very narrow set of people, namely folks who look like me, white people, non-disabled, straight folks. And so we really my sister and I wanted to make sure from the ground up, our entire team, all the people represented on the platform, we're thinking about how to make culturally competent mental health care that's trauma-informed, that's justice-informed. So we're really trying to get specific about the tools we're offering. And you can find something that speaks to your experience, not just the general, tactic that you're supposed to do, like breathing technique, and you hope that it works for everyone. No, on some days, if anyone here deals with anxiety, some days trying to force yourself into deep breathing is like the worst thing you can do. In other days, it saves you in that moment. So at the heart of this is people feeling empowered and equipped with tools so that whatever you're experiencing in your day-to-day life, it meets you exactly where you are, and you can find something that can help you feel better in the moment and also get back into your life and flourish, improve the quality, improve your relationships, but also like now you have the juice to go out there and really contribute to the world. So yeah, it's been a journey as a founder for sure, and I'm learning so much every single day. But when we hear on a daily basis that people are using these tools at any and every moment, sometimes someone's like, I do this, shaking technique. I do it before I get into my workday, and it allows me to not freak out on my meetings. Or another person who uses a different tool, after they have a tough conversation with their partner, for them to say, we feel like we have our lives back and that we're not discombobulated all the time is so important.
Yeah.
'Cause in our, to be alive in 2023 in the States, means these stress relief techniques are not really optional. These are baseline routines for how to stay functioning, how to manage what it means to be alive in 2023.
Yeah, and I know myself included, I can get really stuck in the intellectual and in the mental processes because I enjoy my intellect, and so I go to it often, and I don't even realize I am only trying to solve and process and confront things in my life intellectually. So I really resonate with what you're saying, and I'm going to have to check out some of these videos. One of my words that came through for this new year was somatic. I recognized over the last few years I have really been in my head surviving a lot, and last year I started to drop back into my heart in different ways and again find hope and other things, and I realized, whoa, I need some somatic practices. I need some practices that put me into my body to process this life that I'm feeling, because I can make it all clear maybe in my head, but if my body isn't vibrating on that level, if my body isn't feeling unstressed, then I'm not actually doing it. Yeah.
Can I offer a few pointers?
Yes, please.
Move as slowly as your body wants you to into the practices. Really honor your pace. If your body if you felt a bit disconnected for a while, it might be too intense or overwhelming to try and do some super immersive experience and then leave yourself in a state that feels unmanageable long term.
Yeah.
And so I know that as performers, we're like, let's get in there and dig into it. And somatic work is often, most transformative when you're really listening to your body's needs, honoring the pace that it's setting, and building that trust again to know that if your body says, I can only do 5 minutes today, that you're gonna respect that. Otherwise, it adds to the disconnection and distrust. So that, that's one thing. And then also, I forgot the other, but I can put together like a little playlist for you if you want.
Cool. I mean, it has been it's been something I need to move into this year.
Oh, yes. Okay. Remember back last year at the beginning of the conversation when we talked about Piaget's model of development?
Yes.
So I mentioned sensory motor stage 0 to 2. Now, during that time, we're actually absorbing our initial map of the world, our initial concepts of, is the world safe or not?
Yep.
Are people safe or not? How do I know who's safe and who's not? And so that happens pre-verbally.
Yep.
We literally don't have language for it.
Yep.
So as we start to do different healing work later in life, a lot of times trying to use talk therapy or journaling prevents us from accessing the stuff that's in there that didn't have language. So it's actually going to be accessed through sensory memory. That's where movement becomes a really powerful tool. And I think when people hear movement, we automatically jump to like fitness or dance or even like, oh, you're talking about really interpretive, creative things. And I'm suggesting something as small as learning that it's okay to place a hand over your heart to hold yourself, because sometimes what we need to connect with is that sense of being held, or the gentle sway that we, hopefully received as an infant when someone was holding us and rocking us back and forth. Like subtle movements that help us expand after being in fight or flight and contracted, help us reconnect with the ability to breathe and signal to my mind it's okay to calm down, right? So you can do both top-down tools and also bottom-up tools. Start, learning how to work with your body first. If you feel like, okay, I've tried cognitive behavioral therapy, I've like done affirmations, and my body's still freaking out. Sometimes you have to learn to speak the language of the body and say, okay, use this tool called progressive muscle relaxation, where you tense everything and hold it, and then release everything, because it brings conscious awareness to your body, signaling, oh, this is what relaxation feels like. Wow, I guess I have been tense. Wow, I guess it is okay to relax. And it helps your mind then catch up to that as well, right? So it's like learning.
So good.
It's learning the map of you.
Yeah, and we're more than a mind.
Yes, and like these tools, my favorite part of the company is that I was like, I don't want any barriers for anyone. You don't need any equipment. You don't need a prescription.
Yeah.
And of course, fully support if you need a prescription for a specific need. But like
for these tools,
it's your mind and body.
Amazing.
It's your pace. It's your well-being. And it doesn't have to look like anyone else's. And that's like, I think that's exciting for me to see more people engage with well-being in this way.
I absolutely love it.
And if you want to sign up,
yeah, movement.
It's only $10.
Movementgenius.com. I'm sure many people here will sign up. I'll sign up.
Yeah, I would love to see you in class.
Yeah, that is beautiful. I love the mission that you're on. I love that you haven't fully given up acting, but just it's a less of a priority. I think that's healthy, but I also know you're a fucking incredible just artist.
Do you think though? I don't know about that.
I think you can sing like a motherfucker. I think your dance skills are incredible. I think you can perform well and connect. I mean, part of your ability to connect as a human, you can bring that to acting, and I think that's beautiful. So I just don't give up your connection to your art. You can.
Okay.
I understand being in a process with the industry of it. Sure. But I think you have it in you to be an expressive, connecting human being.
Thank you.
And
Yes.
but I'm glad you're on this mission and purpose and priority right now of creating, first of all, a business, but also something that has such purpose for the well-being of all of us.
Yes,
And
most
empowering
importantly, yeah.
individuals.
Yeah. Thank you for naming that. I will hold that in my mind and body. And it actually is an important process that I'm going through of like, do I even know how to sing? Can I actually dance?
Yeah.
Was I creative? Or
Yeah.
did I just, I'm
Yeah,
like going through the whole thing of like, am I an artist? Nah, maybe.
Listen, that's a part of it is struggling with the identity of it. I made music for a long time, and then for like a year and a half, I don't know what it is for me. I know it's in me. I know I enjoy it, but I don't know what it is for me right now.
Okay.
And that's okay. I trust that the process will keep going, so I hope you do too.
Yes. Put out a little note into the melody of the universe and to whoever that random person was who gave you hope 12 years ago, and they might just send you a DM tonight.
Absolutely beautiful. I can't wait to hear what happens with that. Thanks for coming on, Alyson. It's so fucking great to see you.
It's great to see you.
Yeah. Even though you might not think you're doing well, it looks like you're doing
Oh,
well.
good.
Okay?
You bring it out of me, huh?
Okay. Call me anytime.
Come hang in the desert.
That's right.
I'm going to get some food now.
Thanks for listening to that Onomy podcast. Onomy is a creator-led educational platform that teaches you the things you wished you learned in school so you can thrive in adulthood. Onomy lessons are completely free, and they're taught by some of your favorite creators from around the internet. Head to onomy.co to start learning about things like budgeting, investing, taxes, how to thrive in your relationships, how to find your dream job, and so much more. That's onomy.co, onomy.co. See you there.